it just shows, that a lot of people are unhappy with the current monetary system, which is dominated by governments and central banks, and that's why also this the cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin, is rising.
Claudio,
Jean,
can you hear me now?
yes, I can hear you now.
Excellent, excellent. I have Claudio Grass on the line from Precious Metals Advisory, live from Switzerland. You can find him on the web at claudiograss.ch. Claudio, welcome back. How are you, sir?
Thank you very much, Sean. I'm doing fine. Glad to have you on the line.
Claudio, as we're having this conversation today, Bitcoin is up more than $4,000 since yesterday, having, at least as we're having this conversation, now soared above $19,000. Never seen anything like it in my life. And now we see the bankers freaking out. They're afraid they can't handle the futures, and they're going to get stuck holding the bag because all Bitcoin does is go up. This is, I think, the craziest story I've ever seen is what's going on with Bitcoin right now. Your thoughts?
Well, hey, I mean, yeah, Bitcoin, that's really, the more I read about it, and I told you, I mean, we have this crypto valley over here in Switzerland, and that, of course, I'm a big fan of cryptocurrencies and the blockchain, because it all goes towards decentralization. But I have to tell you, the more I read, the more I'm also confused. And when I see how these prices are going up, I mean, it's just amazing. What you have, all these futures, when the banks basically come in, they try to, short or use those financial instruments, which they're also using in the banking system. It has, of course, it has an impact. And when it comes to Bitcoin and the price as such, I mean, I really don't know how far it can go, but I also don't know if it's really a store of value. So, most likely I'm not the right person to come up with a really, precise answer, because I think, the future is really uncertain, and still the biggest threat, when it comes to Bitcoin, is basically the government. And if it's becoming too big, I don't know how they are going to react. I don't know what kind of rules and regulations they're going to change. At the same time, you still need to grow the market. You still need an interface between, when we talk about bigger money, you need an interface between the banking system and big Bitcoin exchanges. And I don't know, if that is going to last also in the future, or if it's becoming too big a threat for the government and their paper money system, that they might shut it down. I really don't know. I mean, there are a lot of risks involved, which are pretty hard to define right now, especially because these prices, I mean, it's just going crazy. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it, and we have Alan Greenspan coming out and calling it irrational. And look, it is irrational. I'm not making the argument that Bitcoin at $19,000 or $16,000 or even the $13,800 that Clif High personally told me it would be at by February 2018, and that's when it was down around 3,000 or 4,000. Bitcoin got there early, and it's still climbing higher. It is irrational, and I don't know what to make of it, but I can tell you this. Honestly, as it pertains to that GBTC, all of the publicity, all the propaganda was coming out to try to slam it as we were moving towards this COMEX futures trading. And the big argument was GBTC trades at a premium to the underlying Bitcoin. And so therefore the argument, the propaganda was short GBTC because investors will have a better way to play Bitcoin with the futures. And now the futures exchange on the COMEX, that appears to be falling apart. The bankers aren't sure they want to go there because they can't control Bitcoin, and now they know it. And GBTC, based on the last 3 days of trading of Bitcoin, is now slightly trading below net asset value. And still today, as Bitcoin rockets higher by $3,000, there's a bid and ask difference of around 10 cents on GBTC. I've never in my life seen manipulation like it, and I hope those shorts get caught with their pants down, because what we're seeing on Wall Street and what we've been seeing for as long as you and I have been following the markets, in my opinion, Claudio, are bankers that want to turn the people, the average Joe, upside down and get all the quarters and dimes and nickels left in their pockets out. I think Wall Street for me is really nothing more than a swindle. So I think that's why a lot of people want to turn to cryptos, is because they're tired of being swindled by the banks and the banksters and the Wall Street criminals.
Well, I mean, it's our markets, it's basically paper scam. It's a credit market. The Wall Street is living off credit, and liquidity which basically has been pumped in out of nothing, or coming out of nothing. So that's the Western world. Of course, also the rest of the world is still somehow trapped in the in that system. But for me, I mean, as I said, when it comes to Bitcoin, I really, I would have to speculate. I really don't have a clear opinion right now what I should think about it and how high it can go. But when I see that they already start, the same scams, basically, leveraging like. They do it in the normal asset markets. I don't know where it will go to.
Well, you know what I've been saying for, probably a year now, and this was back when Bitcoin was around 600, 500. I said, dip your foot in the pool, because wouldn't you just feel sick to your stomach if this thing went to new highs and kept on going? And of course, at that point, the old high was 2,000. And here it's soaring into the teens. And yeah, it does make people feel sick to their stomach, because it doesn't make any sense. But what I've been saying for a long time, Claudio, is that if the gold and silver markets were traded freely, free of Wall Street manipulation, free of COMEX manipulation and futures manipulation and international banking collusion manipulation, we would have seen this happening with gold and silver. And I think case in point is earlier this week, we saw somebody, some deep-pocketed institution, throw $1.5 billion of notional gold at the market, taking gold back down to 4-month lows. Now, that's what they want to do with Bitcoin, and they can't do it. And so what I think we're seeing is the hyperinflation that should be obvious to everybody by rising silver and gold prices. We're not seeing it in silver gold because silver and gold are manipulated, so we're seeing it in the cryptocurrencies. You think there's some truth in that?
Well, I mean, it just shows, that a lot of people are unhappy with the current monetary system, which is dominated by governments and central banks. And that's why, also this the cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin, is rising. As you said, yeah, of course, the gold market is also, it's the same paper scam in the West. When you talk about the COMEX and also the OTC in London, I mean, it's, they trade, 1.5 million tons of gold on an annual basis. For example, in 2016, and only at the OTC gold market in London. And when it comes to the COMEX gold futures, I mean, they reached 57 million in contracts during 2016, which represents 179,000 tons of gold. So, I mean, we ever digged out 180,000 tons approximately, and it just shows, how big that scam is. But what a lot of people have basically not heard about is that on 24th of November, during the Russian bullion market conference, the first deputy chairman of the Russian central bank, Sergei Svetsov, he announced that the BRICS countries are considering the launch of a gold trading platform within the group. So that seems to be for me, when it comes to gold, that's a pretty interesting aspect, and I'm surprised that most of the mass media haven't spoken about that story, because that's also quite a big game changer from my point of view, especially when it comes to physical gold.
Yeah. Well, you know what? As I've been saying, unlike others out there that I used to interview, people like Andy Hoffman. Andy Hoffman came out recently and said that he sold all his silver this past summer. And he was one of the biggest silver bulls, that I'd ever interviewed. And it's a little disheartening because, A, I had him on as a guest regularly, but B, I still believe firmly in my heart and soul silver and gold in physical form are money, and if you hold it, you own it, and it's a great ballast in a stormy sea. I think we're going to see a lot of economic stormy seas coming up in the future here, especially as it pertains to the petrodollar and these other fiat currencies. And I still believe that there is a place in our portfolios for physical precious metals as well as some cryptocurrencies. I'm not throwing out the baby with the bathwater and saying, oh, it's only cryptocurrencies. I mean, I think that's lunacy at this point after the run-up. The smart money is probably selling some cryptos to buy more physical silver and gold at this point.
Well, I think that would be the best thing to do. I mean, just take some of the earnings and the gains and put it back in something which is definitely undervalued. And I mean, it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to get money out of the crypto system if you don't have. I mean, the beginning of the crypto system. I mean, it has to be, for example, let's look at these ICOs. They are doing, for example, in Switzerland. I mean, if somebody wants to invest in an ICO with existing cryptocurrencies, and he cannot define the background of assets, for example. He's not bringing back that money into the system. So I think, if we have a few guys which basically invested money and then they identified themselves and went through an exchange and they can prove the background of asset, I think they should really, turn some of that money into physical gold. And I think the easiest way that could be done is, I know only one company which is doing a good job when it comes to that. It's called Voltoro. I think they're based out in the UK, and there you can trade your Bitcoin versus physical gold, which is also stored in Switzerland. So I think, it's great that people made so much money, and but I always believe, at the end of the day, there are so many questions still open when it comes to the Bitcoin and the future and all the risks which are involved, and also how governments are going to react. And if they're going to change their status, or if they come up with new regulations and will basically go after the people. We don't know yet. So, but I think, and at the same time, it's accumulation. All the guys I know they accumulate cryptos. They don't trade, and so it's a big wave right now, and the future will tell. If crypto really becomes a medium of exchange accepted, by a lot of market participants in the future or not. Or if the meantime, if something is happening, that the regulators are going to shut down the banks, that they are going after the exchanges and so on. So you never know. As I said, the biggest crooks are our existing governments. And if they see that they could tax something, most likely they will try to do so.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what they want to do. And the IRS has tried to get account holders' names from Coinbase because they want to come after people for the taxes. A lot of people like me haven't sold any because we want to just ride this thing higher. So I'll tell you one thing interesting right now. I'm trying to access Coinbase. It says service unavailable. Coinbase is currently down for maintenance. Please try again later or see our status page for more information. So what do you think? Do you think it's a blow-off top at $19,000 Bitcoin, up 3, 4, 5,000 in a 24-hour period? Sure sounds like it.
Well, 2010, you were able, I think, to buy with $100 Bitcoins worth back then 6 cents. So, that would be basically today 30 million, something like that, 25, 30 millions. And now it's going up. Of course, it's a small market. We don't know how many of the big, we don't know how many players hold how much Bitcoins in total. And so, I'm just following it. It's speculation. It's a lot of gambling involved. I truly believe, I love it because it's decentralized. It's going against government monopoly money. And I also truly believe that the blockchain has a huge potential in the future, and it's definitely becoming a game changer. But when it comes, to the actual price of Bitcoin, if it's a bubble, or if the bubble can become bigger, if it can even go to 50 or 100,000, everything is possible. I don't know. But, as I said, I'm looking into that. I'm not the Bitcoin specialist. But a good friend of mine, he's a hacker, and he basically told me that the SHA-2, the hash algorithm used by Bitcoin, was initially introduced by the NSA. So there are still, some doubts. But on the other side, hey, everyone that is in the party is always fun. Just make sure that you don't become too greedy. And if you made a fortune within a very short period of time, take out some of the gains and convert it into another asset class, physical gold, physical silver, and diversify your risk.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a piece just the other day. I think it was from the Daily Sheeple, saying that 1% of all of the holders of Bitcoin own 50% of all the Bitcoin. So it is a bit of an elite game. Look, with 21 million total Bitcoin ever minted, and right now I think there's only 16 million out there, and how many have been lost? How many people on Earth even own any Bitcoin, even a fraction of a Bitcoin? I'd say not too many.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, these are all these are all good questions, and I think yeah, I mean, my friend, I have a lot of friends that basically became also millionaires, when because they purchased Bitcoin in the past. So of course, for them everything is shiny, and they truly believe that this is the only way to go. And and for me, I mean, I'm not invested so far in Bitcoin, but I truly believe, yeah, it's a very interesting, it opens a lot of possibilities in the future. But as I said, there are so many risks which we cannot judge on, and we still have, a system which is dominated by governments. So we don't know, how they are going to react, and if they try to take it out, and yeah, who has accumulated how many, and what is going to happen. Let's assume if the price goes up to, I don't know, 25,000, and now some people are trying to sell. So that will be also kind of test, to see can they still sell it, what is happening to the value of the cryptocurrencies, or is it just that it remains within the network and there is no exit left. So the future will tell. I would just say I'm not negative, I'm not positive. I like the concept, but there are so many question marks, and therefore I'm a bit hesitant.
Yeah, no, I understand. And guys, the reason I'm asking Claudio about Bitcoin is because it was on our list of things to talk about today. Cultural Marxism, BRICS announcing the gold trading platform, and Bitcoin. And I started with Bitcoin because I do think this is an historical day. So we'll just wrap up the conversation about Bitcoin with this statement and your reaction. If you're Steve Mnuchin, the former Goldman Sachs alum who supposedly visited Fort Knox and said, the gold is safe. He didn't say it was there. He said it was safe. And my joke is that, yeah, it's safe in the hands of the Rothschilds. We haven't had an audit of Fort Knox since, 1954, 1956, something like that. Not going to get an audit of Fort Knox anytime soon. If you're Steve Mnuchin or you're Alan Greenspan, who today is freaking out and calling Bitcoin irrational, if you're one of these central bankers, are you not a little upset? You're probably freaking out right now watching Bitcoin do what it's doing because you can't control it like they can and do and have controlled the prices of gold and silver for a millennia. Honestly, I think this is the canary in the coal mine, and they're freaking out because they can't control it, which I love.
Well, yeah, the future will see. Will tell if they can control it. I mean, they can still, shut some doors, and as I said, change regulations and so on. I mean, they have the government force on their side, and yeah, there, of course, when it comes to the gold market, I think, when it comes to gold, for me, it's just, great that, that the East basically is really considering to launch this gold trading platform. And, it will be done everything in physical gold. So that's definitely a game changer where you even have, a huge part of the global population. I mean, when we look at the BRIC countries, they account for about 40% of the world population and around 23% of the world domestic product. So I think in combination that they also announced of pricing oil in yuan and now using a gold-backed futures contract in Shanghai, and they established in the past, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and the New Development Bank China, setting up, from my point of view, an alternative to the post-Bretton Woods establishment. And so I truly believe this is a game changer as well. Also, it hasn't been around in the mass medias, but I think that's quite a big move, and especially for physical gold.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an important story, and you hit the nail on the head. They can change the rules, they can change the regulations, but that's fascism. It's government rule by force. It's exactly why, people like Jeff Berwick say, just get out of the country. You people in America think you're free. You're not free. If you think you're free, try to withhold your taxes from the IRS. If you think you're free. So that's the bottom line. If they want to come after Bitcoin and try to change the rules of the game now, they're just going to reveal themselves to be the dictators they are. And it's the same reason so many of us have turned to gold and silver in physical form over the past 5, 6, 10, 15 years, Claudio, because we want liberty. We want honest money. We want something that's outside of the banking system, which is ripe for a crash. We don't want to be a part of their criminality, and yet they push it on us. They implement it on us with their rules and their regulations and their manipulation. Deutsche Bank, HSBC, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, manipulating the markets, manipulating the precious metals markets, and nobody ever going to jail. So you wanted to talk about cultural Marxism. Let's do that. And let's first start by talking about fascism, this idea of government, corporatocracy, rule by force. You said it yourself. They have the guns. So they can change the rules. They can outlaw Bitcoin. But by doing so, they will only reveal themselves to be the dictators they are.
Yeah, that's right. We are living in a fascistic system. It's crony capitalism. It's basically the alliance between big business and big government. And they have worked hard, to achieve that. And I think one of the instruments they definitely used was, cultural Marxism, which is, from my point of view, an aggressive and totalitarian ideology, which really aims to destroy individualism and independent thinking. And of course, the most disturbing aspect is that's really done and forced on us through our own institutions, which basically, they try to enforce a cultural suicide. And that has been, executed through the education system, the media, justice, and the military. So, the fathers of cultural Marxism, such as Antonio Gramsci and George Lukács, as well as the members of the Frankfurt School, like Horkheimer, Adorno, Marcuse, Fromm, or Habermas, they mentioned in the past that their battle cry is the long march through the institutions. And when I look around, I can only congratulate to them because it seems that they achieved an effective job.
Well, they like to brainwash the populations, right? With their propaganda. They own the media. They own everything of importance. Right? George Carlin got it right. They own it all. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. So I think that's why we're seeing a revolution of those that are at least informed about cryptos to turn to the crypto space as a new avenue that hopefully is outside the reach of these criminals. And look, Bitcoin's not the only game in town. I think Litecoin is going to do extremely well over the next year. Ethereum certainly has the potential to continue doing well. And there's others that Clif High and the WebBots report have talked about. I'd take a look at OMG, OMC Go, and EOS, the new Dan Larimer startup that that could be a threat to the Ethereum platform. There's a lot of good ones out there. So those of us that are free thinkers and want to get outside this system are going to continue to look at the cryptos. We're going to continue to look at physical silver and physical gold. And, I would recommend that people get in touch with you, too. If you're can people inside the United States buy precious metals from you, or is it primarily, or do you primarily deal with people in Europe, Claudio?
No, basically, I have established a network with partners over here in Switzerland and Liechtenstein, which I have carefully selected. And so I can, I can serve clients from all over the world, institutionals, private individuals, high net worth individuals, and to come up, with tailor-made solutions. So they can get in touch with me, and I will advise them and find the best solution based on their specific needs. So for you as clients, it's not a problem at all, to buy physical metals over here through the channels I'm going to suggest to them, so that they really can also build up another, insurance in a safe jurisdiction, at least when it comes to private property rights in physical assets, such as gold and silver, when kept outside the banking system.
And do give us your website information and perhaps even an email if you want people to email you directly if they're interested in working with you, Claudio.
Absolutely. My webpage is claudiograss.ch, and they can always shoot me an email at info@claudiograss.ch.
Very good. Get the real deal. Get it in physical form and take delivery. Guys, that's Claudio, Claudio, Grass, Grass.ch, claudiograss.ch. Claudio, thanks so much for joining us. I'm sorry to just drown you in all this Bitcoin news, but I do think this is a very historical day that we decided to have our conversation on. This was a pre-planned calendar date, but boy, we definitely hit an historical date as Bitcoin is up, $5,000 in the last 48 hours. I've never seen anything like it. So definitely a big story to follow. And guys, check out Claudio Grass at claudiograss.ch. Claudio, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sean. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. You take care as well. And guys, thanks so much for tuning in. You know how much we appreciate your support at sgtreport.com for real news, the antidote to corporate propaganda 24/7. God bless. Bye-bye.